We have a shot of all of the victims together here. When you look over at the photos, I have no recollection of any of them. Never met them. They're just names and faces. None of them never worked for me. None of them, they never went to any places that I ever hung around, because I didn't hang around that many places unless you were involved in politics or if you were involved in clowning, then I might have ran into you.
Some people call him the real-life Pennywise the Clown. In 1978, police investigating the missing case of teenager Robert Piest went to John Wayne Gacy's house and discovered something unimaginable in his crawl space. Buried beneath the Chicago home were the bodies of 29 young men and boys. By the end of the investigation, 33 bodies would eventually be linked to Gacy, making him one of the most infamous killers in American history. In this 1992 jailhouse interview conducted by FBI profiler Robert Ressler, Gacy spends much of his time denying any involvement with the crimes, which is ironic because years earlier after his arrest, he spilled the beans and confessed to everything. So what you're about to watch is not a confession interview. It's an interview where John Wayne Gacy tries to put on a face and pretend to be somebody he's not, an innocent man. If you're new here, I'm Rocki. I'm a true crime obsessed TV producer who's walking you through a real, raw moment in crime that's heavy on my mind. I'll be adding my own comments and context throughout, and I encourage you to do the same in the comments below. And if you're like me and you love true crime stories, hit that subscribe button for more.
The thing of it is, they want you to believe that I and I alone committed these murders. And I had nothing to do with the murders of anyone. In Illinois, when 16 of these murders, when they finally set the dates as to when these murders occurred.
Now, you did say that you never painted yourself as the innocent babe in the woods.
We're going over the same thing. Yeah, we're not going to go into
basically, no.
One thing that makes this interview historically important is who's conducting it. FBI profiler Robert Ressler created the blueprint for what we consider to be modern serial killer psychology. He even coined the term serial killer after his time spent with Ed Kemper.
If you feel that you're not covering up your part of the crimes, but at the same time you open up the thought that others were involved, would you be willing to cooperate with law enforcement people today to avail, say, the materials that you have amassed and to more or less pursue, if in fact there are others that are on the streets that have been involved in these murders, would you be willing to cooperate and to assist to pursue that to the ends of bringing others to justice? Would you be willing to do that?
I got no qualms about that, but what I don't understand is why wasn't it done to begin with, Bob?
He was very well known, and honestly, you can tell Gacy is feeding into that a little. He's talking to somebody that he wants to be considered an intellectual equal to, and or at the very least, wants Ressler to believe him.
If anybody was involved, then how many people are we talking about beside yourself?
We believe there was 4 people involved. Mm-hmm. And that would be Michael Rossi, David Cram, Philip Paskey. Here we've got a Philip Paskey who had a newsletter going out of the Cook County Jail. And here he is involved with a guy named John Norman. And John Norman was running Boys for Hire. They were making snuff films with young boys. To me, they were pimping them off. They were selling them. There was a crossover when we checked into John Norman's background that he goes all the way back to the early 70s, involved in, he ran the Norman Foundation, he run Epic International, and the Odyssey Foundation out of Dallas, Texas. And these were organizations where wealthy men could hire young boys for sexual weekends. Male prostitution.
Had you ever met Norman? You ever had any contact with Norman?
I have yet to see a current picture of him, and therefore I'd had to say no. Phil Paskey may have been with him at one time or another, because, see, again, I came home from out of town at times, and Phil Paskey would be at the house drinking beer or something like that. David Cram is the one that brought Phil Paskey in, and because his Cram, when he didn't want to do nothing, he got a hold of this guy and said, well, this guy can get you somebody for sex. I have a lot of things that I've forgotten that I can't remember. For instance, I can go back to my childhood and stuff and I still remember that, but yet I can go into the 70s and there are a lot of things I can't remember. The same thing with the victims. I've looked at all of, I don't know if you notice here, we got pictures of every one of the victims here, and believe it or not, for the last 12 years, I've studied these photos of the victims. And there is no, we have a shot of all of the victims together here. And when you look over at the photos, I have no recollection of any of them. Never met them. They're just names and faces.
Like Dahmer years later, Gacy would target young men and boys who were vulnerable, men who were easy for society to overlook, runaways, employees of his, homeless teens who were staying with him for work and for shelter. And that was how he so easily preyed upon so many. His victims trusted him.
When you look at them, the thing of it is, we took it a step further. We went into their backgrounds. I wanted to know where they were at, what schools they attended, who they hung out with, and what kind of activities they were into. And that's what we dug up on each one of the victims. But still, there is no association. None of them never worked for me. None of them, they never went to any places that I ever hung around, because I didn't hang around that many places unless you were involved in politics or if you were involved in clowning, then I might have ran into you. But there's no way I could have run into any of them.
Most people remember Gacy as the serial killer clown. But Gacy himself seems frustrated by that persona. He wanted to be seen as a businessman first, and he clearly doesn't like anyone slandering the good name of clowns. But what's kind of interesting is that he had two different clown personas, Pogo and Patches. Pogo was a little more sinister and sulky and mysterious. Patches, however, was a happy-go-lucky clown who was there to twist balloons and bring joy. And honestly, that's something you're going to see mirrored throughout this interview. Gacy separating himself into different personas. It's almost like he viewed himself as several different compartmentalized roles as opposed to one person.
I consider myself the 34th victim. I consider the families victims as well, because they did not get justice from the shoddy investigation.
Honestly, Gacy calling himself the 34th victim says everything that you need to know. Even after the bodies, the convictions, the confessions, the death sentence, he's still sitting here trying to make himself out to be some sort of pseudo-innocent man.
As I told you, when the FBI first came in to check on me, you said that you were kept out of the case back in '78, and that was only because of egos. They did not want a professional coming in and doing an investigation. So they did their sloppy investigation and let it slide that way. You see, everybody was so excited about the large, massive case, and everybody was looking with their egos as to how they could close this thing up. And you know the only one that they really hurt? You've had the victim's family vent all their hostility towards me, and they think I'm the monster that killed their son or took out their son and stuff like that. When in fact, most of them don't even have the remains of their own sons. And you know, that's another thing everybody misses from this, is that the victims' families are not aware that in a lot of the cases they don't even have the remains of their own sons, because Dr. Stein never turned over the whole body, and they took the heads off of each one of the victims. So when you turn over the remains to a loved one's family, they don't have the whole body. What do you actually feel that my case has been thoroughly investigated?
I think, John, in a case like this, and I find this in many major cases, that things are at the time of the case are done rather hastily because of the fact that there's pressure on.
Yeah, but that's a political answer. I know. Yeah. I don't want a political answer from you. I want a basic answer. Do you actually think that the investigation of my case has been done right? I
believe in your case that there should have been more focus on others, as there should have been others checked out a little more thoroughly. That's the belief I've developed over these years.
Gacy was obsessed with fame and power, and that led him to be interested in politics. He was even the chairman of a local Polish Democratic club, which hosted a yearly parade. And none other than Miss Rosalind Carter attended in 1978, which gave way to this photo of the two of them together, just months before his arrest.
Yeah, I just think that we're kind of wrapping it up here. I think we accomplished something today. Certainly we put something down on tape that has not been said. My feeling as a career law enforcement officer is that if John Wayne Gacy is guilty, then he should be punished. If John Wayne Gacy has others involved, then they should be brought in, they should be punished. Basically, I believe in total investigation and total justice, and that's really what I've been looking for all along.
On May 10, 1994, John Wayne Gacy was executed via lethal injection. His alleged last words were, "Kiss my ass." And yet, we're still fascinated by him, his persona, and his actions, and I wonder why. I do think it's important to never forget the victims because they were all so young. Thanks for taking a look at this with me today, and don't forget, stay weird, stay aware, stay safe, and subscribe to Crimevine.